Absolutely, and I totally agree with that. Now, having worked with so many entrepreneurs and small businesses and all sorts of people, are there any particular mistake or two that you have noticed that most or all of the aspiring entrepreneurs make, and any particular pitfalls for that matter, and how to avoid them? What has been your um, I would say what have you noticed?
Yes. Well, what I've noticed, there's a couple things, and maybe they could be themes. It definitely, nothing ever applies to everybody because everybody is wired differently. So the first major category of folks that I see are those that are completely trapped in analysis paralysis. So they're the planners by nature, and they may spend months, years, decades working on plans without ever trying anything in the real world. And they keep waiting for the perfect business plan and the perfect scenario and the right conditions. And anybody who's done entrepreneurship knows that they never exist. And as soon, it's only static for about 1 minute before things change. And so planning is a fantastic thing to do always. I just, in my workshop in Portland, had Tim Berry, who's the founder of Palo Alto Software, which does business planning software. He's been in the business of business planning for 30 years. And he was saying in his presentation, business plans are always lies. They're never true. But the key is when you do some planning, at least you know if things go wrong, you have a frame of reference to analyze where did it go wrong, just to do course corrections. So for the planners, my advice is always start doing something, a little something on the side to test in a real way your plans. So that's one extreme, is the planners to a fault. The other extreme are people who say, you know what, I'm just going to quit my job right now and I'll figure it out. Build it and they will come. And sometimes life is funny. It really works. I think it's sometimes more fluke. That was the case for me. I had a very healthy skill set in a ripe market, and I never had any problem over 10 years when I did corporate consulting getting work. Everything flowed for me. But that is definitely the exception. And what happens in that case where you don't do any planning and you just jump in even without knowing if there's water in the pool, especially if you have a family and you have ongoing obligations, it can mean you're setting yourself up for a lot more stress. And so in both cases, I just recommend testing and trying little things. Break things down into really small pieces. And then probably the third general area where people fall down a little bit is thinking that they have to do it all themselves. And the good thing is we have people like you who are actively creating a community and providing information. All of us that blog on topic know this. You can get mentors. You can meet with mastermind peer groups in your local area. I think if you try to do everything by yourself, it will be impossible. It will take you longer. It will give you more risk, and it will be more expensive. So the best advice I have for anybody, if you're an employee or an entrepreneur, is to surround yourself with really, really smart people.
That's great. That's great. Now, what would be, and it might go with the previous question, but what would be the 5 action steps which you would give us and our members who are aspiring entrepreneurs, that these are the 5 action steps? Go start doing this, start building upon this, start testing, as you just said. What would those 5 action steps be?
Well, it actually directly falls in the path of my book, because that's one of the reasons I wrote it, is I think that there can be a very pragmatic step to this process. So the first thing is really getting in touch with who are you really, your real self, not the self that you've been being in order to please your parents and society and everything, but really who are you as a human? Yes, and your boss. And what do you really enjoy? You really cannot underestimate the importance of choosing topics and areas of interest that you're really passionate about. It takes a huge amount of effort and energy in order to be an entrepreneur. And so really pay attention to yourself and recognize the kinds of things that are interesting to you personally, inherently interesting, as opposed to just chasing the market and seeing what can make you money in the short term. So find out what you're really interested in, and then begin to do this process of really scoping out and beginning to vet your business idea. I tend to think of it first about who are the kinds of people that you would like to work with, really regardless of what your product and service is. Are there people that energize you, that you think are very interesting, that would be fun to work with, that you share values with? Doesn't mean everybody has to be the same as you, but for your market, it's so much more enjoyable to work with people that you really enjoy. So find what you're passionate about. Think about the people that you really want to be working with. From there, that's where they will actually tell you the kinds of critical problems that they're working on that your product or your service can address. So people that might be interested in being a consultant, you can think about what are the areas I'm passionate about? Is it finance? Is it process and operations? Is it leadership coaching? Based on that, who would I like to work with? Based on that, what are some specific challenges that they face? And then how can I create a product or service that really addresses that problem? I think great businesses really work when they are solving specific problems. And so you want to build your business idea and your business model on that. Get a general idea about what are the kinds of things I'd like to do. The fourth step is really testing and trying. Just begin to get out there and work it. I don't care if it's on a volunteer basis. I think it's great. The key thing is that you just practice talking with people, solving their problems, working with them very specifically. If you want to create a product, you want to create a small prototype and just get it in people's hands and let them begin to play with it and test it and see what the reaction is. And then I think the fifth step would be when you're actively testing prototyping is to be focused on identifying who your key network is. Way before you actually want to sell a product or service, you want to be building relationships with people online and in person. That could be potential clients and customers and mentors and some members of what I call in the book the High Council of Jedi Knights. Those people who you really admire, who you can start to build relationships with or at least aspire to connect with. So what a lot of entrepreneurs do is they just begin to develop a presence, especially in social media, when they're just about ready to launch their product or service. And that to me is way too late. You want to do it way back in the early stages where you may be a year away from leaving your corporate job, and you can just begin to connect with people and so that they're aware of your journey, and by the time you're ready to sell something, then they already know who you are and they already know, like, and trust you.
And those people can help you in your market research and a lot many other things while you are in the pre-startup phase as well. Won't you agree?
Oh, that's been the story of my life. I no longer ever spend tons of time in planning. I just connect with initially was my blog readers, now it's a lot over Twitter, and find out what people want. My whole book was written in cooperation and collaboration with my blog readers and my Twitter followers. I was very active in sharing with them what was going on as I was writing it, and that to me mitigates the risk of knowing I'm not just making stuff up that's not going to be relevant. And of course, it also helps when people feel invested in what it is that you're creating and you're listening to them, then they feel more a part of it and they're more likely to buy.
And again, it's like, going back to one of the steps you mentioned, solving a problem. Isn't that solving a problem if you're working with your target market? That's the beautiful thing you can do around there.
That's right. You just know there are things that you simply won't know until you start to engage with them. And this is something I find every day in working with clients. Once you can have a certain idea of what you want to do or where you want your business to go. And I love having goals. I love having visions. That's the way that my mind is wired. What I also know about that is you can have a certain vision with how things are going to be. And once you start to interact with people, it could be that you go a wildly different direction, but it's still a good direction as long as you feel like it's still work you enjoy. Because what they're basically doing is saying, no, this is really the areas that I need help with. This is where there is a market where I want to spend money, as opposed to more of the traditional interruption view of sales and marketing, where what we're trying to do is to convince you to buy something that maybe you don't really want. That's really not what it's about today. Where there are limited resources, people want to know that you are saving them time, reducing their risk, really giving them a good return on investment, helping them to build their brand. So they will tell you where it is that they need that help. And if you follow that, it makes for a very healthy market.
Oh, definitely it does. Now, any other parting advice you would have before we close the interview?
I would say don't think that you're crazy. For if you're sitting in your job and you may be surrounded by people who don't really understand what it is that you're working on, it's probably the thing that I say the most to people that are blog readers. And also I found this just in my workshop. It was so lovely to meet people and hear them come up afterwards and tell me, I was feeling a little bit crazy for maybe wanting to give up. Really just know that there's nothing wrong with you if you're not happy with your current situation. There are ways to work. Be some big Jerry Maguire moment of leaving your job and making a big speech. You can do it in a calculated way, but trust your instinct, trust yourself to know if you're really feeling like there's more to life, because there is.
Great, great. So, thank you so much, Pam. Thank you for taking time for breaking the 9 to 5 jail. And my members and I really appreciate your time and help. And I'm very sure they will appreciate and learn as much as I did. And with that, I would say good luck with the book tour which you have been on. And ladies and gentlemen, this was Pam Slim with Escape from Cubicle Nation, author, blogger, and startup coach.